Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. I'm Ifoma. So in today's tutorial I'm going to be making this beautiful bustier top with an underbust corset and a Basque waistline. So if you are interested in this, just keep watching. Alright, so the first thing we have to do is to draft the pattern on this paper, and as you can see I already drew out my shoulder line. That line you see on top there is my shoulder line, and from that shoulder line we went down by my bust line, my bust point, my waist, under bust point, my waistline, and also the full length of the top. Okay, so here I'm just connecting those dots with a straight line. Here is my under bust, and then the rest is the full length of this top. You can also attach your waistline if you want to, okay, because you later be needing your waistline in this top. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and draft a basic bodice. On the neckline I'm going in by 3 inches, and the depth will also be 3 inches as well. All right, so we really don't need this neckline, we're just drafting this for better understanding. So I'm just going to connect this 3 by 3 neckline we just measured. Okay, so after this, the next thing we are going to do is to divide our shoulder measurement by 2, and then we are going to impute that measurement, and on that measurement as well we are going to come down by 1 inch for our shoulder slope. Okay, so we do this all the time. We should have gotten used to it by now. All right, so from the shoulder line, from that new shoulder line, I'm going to come back down by my armhole line depth, which is dividing your bust measurement by 6 and adding 1.5 to it. All right, so when I've gotten that, I'm just going to connect it with a straight line. The next thing, I'm just going to draw a straight line across the armhole depth. That new line will be our chest line. So the next thing I'm going to do is to start taking my darts, and to take my darts I'm going to divide my nipple to nipple measurement by 2, and whatever I have I'm going to impute that measurement from my center bust. I'm going to measure that half of my nipple to nipple measurement, and I'm going to put that on my bust line, on the under bust line, and also on the full length of this dress. So when I've done, I'm going to connect all these dots together down to the full length of this dress. Okay, so if you notice I omitted the chest line because this is the front that we are drafting. For the back we are going to include the chest line when we are taking the dart. So here I'm just going to connect all the dots with my marker just to make the lines clearer. So when we have gotten this, the next thing we are going to do is to come on the shoulder line. We are going to divide our shoulder line by 2, and then we are going to make a mark on the half of this shoulder line. So from there I'm going to connect that from that dot to our bust line with a straight line. All right, so this is what we have after we are done. The next thing we are going to do is to go ahead and impute our darts. On the part going to the center front I'm going to put half of an inch, and on the part going to the side front I'm going to put 1.5. Okay, so I'm extending this dart to the full length of this top as well. So if you are the busty type, like very busty, I would advise you use 2 inches for this part, on the part going on the outside, if you are very busty. But if you are not as busty as I am, you can use 1.7 or 1.5 as well. So when I've gotten all this, I'm just going to connect it down to the hemline with the straight line. Okay, so the next thing, we are going to go down from the bust point by 1 inch, and from there we are going to connect that with our curve, just the way you see me doing like this. You can also use your free hand to connect this if you don't have your curve. Alright, so this is what we have for the underbust down to the hem. Okay, so on the chest line I'm going to come up by 1 inch. If you want yours to be very covered, you can come up by 1.5. If you want yours to be open, you can come up by half of an inch. Okay, so after doing that, on the side going to the CF I'm going to mark 0.5 inches, and on the side going to the side of the front I'm going to mark 1 inch. Okay, this is just for the bust tightening. So this is what we have. So after that, the next thing I'm going to do is to determine how deep I want the center bust to be, and this I don't want it to be so deep, so I went down from the chest line by half of an inch, and I'm going to connect this line back to the 1 inch we went up from the chest line with. Alright, so the next thing we are going to do is to determine our armhole curve. We really do not need this part, but just so we understand better what we are doing, that is why we are actually putting this part. So after doing this, the next thing I'm going to do is to input my bust measurement on the armhole side. Remember that is the chest line. We are going to put our bust measurement there. We are going to divide our bust measurement by 4, of course, and then we are going to mark there, and from there we are going to connect that point, the center of our armhole and the tip of our shoulder with a curve. Remember, on the center of our armhole we went in by 0.5 inches. So when we have achieved this, the next thing we are going to do is to come down from the 1 inch. Remember the 1 inch we went up from the chest for we are going to come down from that 1 inch. We are going to connect it back to our armhole. So here I'm just marking out the underbust to make it more clearer, because we are going to be cutting that part as well. So after that, I'm just going to go ahead and input my body measurements. First, I'm going to go ahead and input my bust measurements, then measure the dart, whatever I have in between the dart on the chest line. I'm going to replace it on our actual measurement. Okay, so on the underbust as well, I'm also going to divide my underbust by 4 and then measure the dart, whatever we have there. We are going to go ahead and replace it on the underbust line, and then we are going to leave that. So the next we are going to do now, we are going to try to also input our waist measurement. So because of that, we are going to take our waist or shoulder to waist line. We are going to mark there. We are going to mark there, then we extend that point with a straight line. Okay, this is our waistline. We're supposed to draw this waistline when we are starting this pattern drafting, but it's not too late because we really don't need that waistline that much. So from the center front, I'm also going to take our waistline, divide it by 4 as usual, and then also replace the dots. And then when I've gotten this, I'm just going to connect all the dots together. Note that we haven't added any allowance to this pattern, so when we are cutting it on our actual fabric, we can go ahead and add the allowances. Alright, so here I'm just connecting all the dots, and when we have gotten to the waistline, remember this top is going to have a Basque waistline. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead to connect from that waistline down to the hem of this top. Alright, so from that waistline, I'm going to connect it like as you see me doing like this, down to the hem of the top. Remember that hem of the top, the length of this top is what I got when I measured from my shoulder to wherever I want the basque to be. So when we have gotten this, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead to cut this out. We're going to cut all this out. Like I said before, we have not added any sewing allowance to this. So when we are cutting it, when we are tracing it on our actual fabric, we can go ahead and add all the necessary allowances. So at this point, if you are yet to subscribe, please hit the subscribe button and also give this video a thumbs up so it reaches new audience, people that might need the video. Okay, so this is it. I also went ahead to cut out the yoke in case you are making yours with a yoke. Okay, so at this point, I'm just going to go ahead to cut out the underbust as well. Remember, what we're doing is a bustier that has a corset under it, so I'm just going to differentiate. I'm just going to cut out the bustier from the underbust. So when we have achieved this, the next thing we are going to do is to put these two together. We are going to try to attach these two together with our tape. Okay, so when you are placing these two together, make sure that one is not on top of the other. Okay, just to make sure that you get the actual measurement. So when I've gotten this, you are advised to place another paper under to trace out, to cover for the shortage in the fabric. But because this is not actually going to affect the length of the top I'm making, I decided just to cut this part out. So please, if yours is going to affect the length of the top, do well to attach a paper to cover the shortage the darts have made. So at this point, this is what we have. We're just going to go ahead and cut this on our actual fabric. So these are all the fabrics we'll be needing. You'll be needing our this is a beautiful Ankara fabric. You'll be needing 1.5 or 2 yards depending on your size, and this is the lining, of course, and then this is the hairstay I'm going to be using to make the Ankara fabric to be thicker. Okay, so you can use any interfacing of your choice. Alright, so we also went ahead to draw after interfacing our material and also the lining. We went ahead to cut out all the pattern that we have made. We placed them on our fabric and we added 0.5 inches on the top and on the bottom, and on the side we added 1.5 for the stitching allowance. Remember, we said we have not added any stitching allowance when we were cutting the pattern. So for the back, it's just a normal off shoulder back with a normal dart. So that is just it. When we are done interfacing the lining and also cutting this out, we are going to go ahead and start working on this. Alright, so to start working on this, we need to cut the wording for the padding of the bustier, and the wording I'm going to be using is this foam pad. I don't know if this is what is called in your area. It's called foam pad here. That is what I'm going to be using to do the wording for our bustier. So here, this is the center front. I'm just going to trace out the center front with this foam pad. Alright, so this is what I'm doing. I've just traced out the foam pad with our center front and the side front as well. Okay, so here I'm just going to trace out the side front in the foam pad as well. Alright, so we're not going to use all of them. We are still going to cut out from the foam pad, but just so you understand better, I'm just tracing everything out now. Alright, so this is how it looks after we are done tracing it out. So what we are going to do now is we are going to take a measurement from the center of this side. Alright, so this is the center. We are going to take a measurement from that center to the side. We are going to use 4 inches. So if you're a lot bustier, you can use 5 inches. Okay, so this is the part we are going to be using. We are going to cut off the other part which goes to the side of our top, and then we are going to use this part which goes to the center of our top. We're just going to cut it out and use it to pad the side of our bust. Alright, so note that that smaller part is going to be down, the one going to the down part of the top, please. So you are advised to label this so you don't mix it up. So at this point, everything is ready. We're just going to go ahead and start joining this top. Alright, so to begin the joining process, what we're going to do is we are going to pin, this is the center front, right? So we are going to pin this, our foam pad, together with the fabric. This is so that it doesn't move when we are working on it. And I'm also going to go ahead and do the same thing for the side of the bust. I'm also going to pin it together for the both sides as well. Alright, so when I've achieved this, I'm going to go ahead to attach it to the center front. So this is how we are going to be joining it. So we are going to be joining this using the 0.5 inches sewing allowance we left when we are cutting it. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing for the other side, and I'm also going to do the same thing for the lining. Alright, so this is what it looks like after we are done joining it. I also went ahead to notch the center, the joining in the bust, and I also went ahead to press it open so it lays flat. So I went ahead to join the lining as well, and after joining the lining I just stitched on it so it lays flat as well. Alright, so we're going to set that aside and we're going to start working on the underbust corset. So the first thing we are going to do is to determine our bone channel. Okay, so like I always say, there is no manual for inputting your bone channel. You just do whatever you want to do. This is the part that I can decide to get creative with fixing your bone. Okay, but if you are going to be fixing an invisible channel, please try to make sure that you have a bone that is going to correspond with the joining at the bust. I hope you understand this. But because mine is going to be an invisible boning, I just use 3 inches to mark out each channel. So I have 5 channels of bone after I was done. So 1 for the center and 2 for the both sides. Like I said before, if yours is going to be a visible bone channel, do well to make sure that you create a bone channel that is going to be corresponding with the joining of your bust. So this is what it looks like after we are done creating the channel. So I'm going to use a bias to create the channel of my bone. You can decide to use anything, any fabric of your choice, a satin, a bias, a crepe, anything you want to use. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and create the bone channels. Alright, so this is what it looks like after we are done creating the bone channel. So I used a bias like I said, and I made sure I matched on the edge of the bias so that my bone can pass through. Okay, so I also went ahead to cut out the bone. When I was cutting the bone, I just measured each channel and I left 1 inch. Okay, so after I measure each channel, I just minus 1 inch so that I will have enough space in the up and the down to sew this, attach the underbust corset to the bust point, and also to turn the hemline. So after that, the next thing I did was to shape in the mouth of my corset. I just made a curve on it, of my bone. I just made a curve on the mouth, the 2 sides of the bone, so it does not become pointy. After that, I just fixed in my bone, and this is what we have. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and press this so it lays down flat. So after I was done, the next thing I was going to do now is to fix this down part to the upper bust. I'm just going to fix it from the center. Okay, so here I'm just notching the center to make sure that I have the right center. Then I'm going to fix the down part. Here I'm just trimming out excess allowance. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that the center of this underbust corset is corresponding with the center of our bustier. Then I'm going to sew it down. I'm going to join them together using a 0.5 inches. Remember, that's the allowance we added when we are adding our stitching allowance. So this is what it will look like after we are done joining it. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this exact same thing on the lining. So this is what it looks like after we are done. This is lining and this is the actual fabric. Okay, so this is what it looks like. As you can see, this is already sitting so beautiful. So at this point we are almost done with this corset. So what we are going to do now is to turn this with a lining. Okay, so we are going to turn on the top, omitting the armhole. Alright, so to create the armhole, I've just went in from the shaping by 4 inches. Okay, so we are still going to trim this away if after turning it and it's still very big, very wide. Okay, so I'm just going to come in for now by 4 inches from the armhole side. So we're just going to turn this lining from that armhole side, from that measurement we have in the armhole side, we're just going to turn it to the other side, and we're going to turn the side and the down part as well. Okay, so if yours is going to be attached to a down part, then you already know you're not going to turn this part with the basque waistline, but I'm turning mine because this is a top, this is not a gown, so I'm just going to turn everything round, omitting that armhole side that we're going to fix our off shoulder hand. So this is what it looks like after we are done. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and notch the upper part and also the side so it lays flat when we turn to the other side. So here I'm just going to flip this to the other side, and then we are going to give this a good press. Alright, so this is what it looks like when I flip it to the other side. This is what it looks like. I'm just making sure that every point is out so it lays very flat. Alright, so this is it after we are done ironing it. Okay, I also went ahead to attach my hemming gum so it lays flat when I turn to the other side. Alright, so here I just took the measurements for across my chest line, and what I got was 14. So from the center bust, I'm going to go out by on each side by 7 inches. Okay, so when I've gotten that, I'm going to make a mark there, and from there I'm going to trim away some excesses for our sleeve. So I'm just going to do the same thing for the other side as well, trim away some excesses so we can fix our sleeve there. Okay, so this is the back part. Like I said before, it's just a normal back. There's nothing special about the back, just a normal back side of an off shoulder top. So we're just going to trim, make sure that the armhole of the back is aligning with the armhole of the front. Okay, that is what we just did. So I'm just going to do the same thing for the other side of the back as well. So here I'm just making sure that everything is corresponding. I'm still going to trim away from the armpit of one side of the back. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and shape this clothes, put our hand, and then it's ready. Alright, so this is what it looks like after we are done fixing our hand. Alright, so thank you very much for watching to this part. Please subscribe and also hit the like button. Okay, and also share this video so it gets to whoever that needs it. Alright, so I'm going to see you guys again in the next one. Bye.